Supporting Students Who Have Brain Injuries by Danielle Hovius, Katie McKenzie, Kelly Connor, and Kaylee Ford.
The following documentary is an outlook on two different types of brain injuries. The content may be sensitive to watch and think about. Viewer discretion is advised.
What is a brain injury? TBI, or traumatic brain injury, is sudden physical damage to the brain. TBI occurs when there is a forceful impact to the head, such as in a car accident, falling off of a bike, or being physically contacted when playing a sport.
The second type of brain injury is known as acquired brain injury, or ABI. These impairments may be temporary or permanent and cause partial or functional disability or psychosocial maladjustment. In layman's terms, an acquired brain injury occurs during or after birth. Examples of an ABI are strokes, brain bleeds, lack of oxygen, infection in the brain, meningitis, brain tumors, toxic exposure, CO2 poisoning. These events can cause different exceptionalities, either physically, cognitively, or socially.
A brain injury is like a fingerprint. No two are alike, by Kevin Pierce.
The following video is a TED Talk by Kevin Pierce, who was an aspiring Olympic athlete in snowboarding. In 2009, during his training, he suffered a traumatic accident. The following is his recollection of his injury.
I love to win, and I hate to lose even more. In late 2009, I was entirely focused on the Vancouver Winter Olympics and learning a new trick called a double cork. Double corks are pretty crazy. I don't know how many of you guys know about snowboarding, but I was trying to learn this trick called a double cork. And I was entirely focused. Everything I had was going to Vancouver and winning the gold medal. And I was set up to do it, right? I was there. I was winning. I was traveling around the world, and I was like the man at that time. Back in 2009, I was doing it. It was on. What's crazy is I was having these thoughts from my hospital bed. On December 31st, 2009, while training in Park City, Utah, I suffered a traumatic brain injury, a TBI. I was medically airlifted from the bottom of the half pipe to the University of Utah, where I spent the next 36 days in critical care, which I have no memory of. No memory of it all about being in Utah. I was then medically airlifted to Craig Hospital in Denver, Colorado, where I spent the next 3.5 months.
A brain injury is a puzzle. All of the pieces are there, but in the wrong order. Unknown.
The following video shows how an acquired brain injury makes a person's life feel similar to a puzzle. All of the pieces are there, however, are not in the right spots just yet.
Characteristics of a child who has been affected by a brain injury. The characteristics of a child who is affected by a traumatic or an acquired brain injury are similar, but much like other exceptionalities, when you have met one person with a brain injury, you have met only one person with a brain injury. The similarities between the two types of injuries come in the form of cognitive, emotional, and social changes or difficulties. Students may be easily distracted, need longer periods of time to understand and reply, as well as having difficulty problem solving. In regards to emotional changes, they may experience mood disorders such as anxiety or depression and likely have short fuses. In social settings, they may have difficulty producing speech and understanding speech, difficulty with reading, writing, and spelling, but also reading social cues, which may lead to inappropriate behaviors towards others. The physical changes are different between the two. TBI, they may have seizures, chronic pain, reduced muscle strength, and impairments in movement and problems with balance. With an ABI injury, they can experience problems walking, having slurred speech, fatigue, or sleep disabilities.
A few behavioral characteristics that students with brain injuries may have are agitation, disinhibition, sudden outbursts of anger, impulsivity, and overall difficulty to control their emotions. These students may feel isolated, withdrawn, lack of social awareness, and inability to self-monitor.
Some ways that educators can help assist students in self-regulation are through developing a rapport with students, daily check-ins, teaching self-advocate skills, peer modeling, role play, positive reinforcements, appropriate transitions, and communicate changes within the classroom. All of these skills will help a student with a TBI or an ABI develop their self-regulation skills.
How do we as educators alter our classroom environment in order to accommodate students with brain injuries? Noise and activity levels should be controlled, and unnecessary distractions and sensory simulations should be minimized. Seating near the teacher or by an appropriate peer, modifying the seating area to meet the student's specific needs. Chunk lessons and activities, and last, have a space for students to relax and decompress to calm their body.
Ways in which we as teachers can ensure our physical classroom is inclusive for students who possess either a TBI or ABI include facilitating mobility and accommodating physical needs through an open concept, tidy classroom, and having accessible bathrooms and ramps available if necessary. We as educators need to provide extra time for transitions, including leaving the classroom a few minutes prior to the period ending so the students can avoid the crowded and busy hallways.
Here are some tips for the classroom. Have a consistent class structure and routines. Students may be on a modified day, so be aware of their physical needs, such as snacks, rest time, and restrooms. Provide a written schedule or posting a visual chart of the daily routine will help reduce confusion. Transition times and out-of-classroom activities should be pre-planned and structured to reduce stimulation and emotional distress, and be aware of the students during outdoor recess times. They may need an educational assistant to help with safety concerns. Here is a boy named Christian who talks about his schooling after a brain injury. You will notice who is helping him and strategies that they use to help him be successful in the classroom.
Hi, I'm Christian and I'm 10 years old. Last year I had an accident and I hurt my brain. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. You're welcome. I was out of school for a long time. I'm doing a lot better now, and I'm even back at school. I'm glad to be back. I miss my friends, but when I came back, things were different. It was harder to concentrate and get my work done. I got frustrated a lot. My mom and my teachers asked Barb to help me. She's an SEA, a special education assistant. That means she's there to help me in class. I wasn't sure about Barb when she started. I didn't want the help. I was worried it would look weird and everybody would make fun of me. But it hasn't been like that. It's been great. Barb is my SEA. She helps me a lot. She helps me stay organized, practice reading. We do math games together, and she helps me get ready for tests. Barb knows that sometimes I need some space, so she helps me find a quiet place to walk or even take a break when I need it. I'm doing better at school, and I'm glad I have Barb.
A few academic strategies educators can employ when working with students who have TBI or ABI are simplified instructions, written or visual checklists of required steps, maps, or strategically placed signs to carry out tasks, using auditory or visual cues to signal changes in the routine, and giving the student advanced warning is also helpful. Teachers of the same student should agree on environmental strategies and apply them consistently throughout the school day.
I would say that most schools are prepared quite well to work with children with brain injury. They just maybe don't know it. So, for example, most strategies that work with children with other disabilities work quite well with kids with brain injuries. There's some modifications that need to take place, and that's why it's important for educators to become knowledgeable about the disability, because there's some differences. So that's where the weakness is that preparation doesn't happen at the pre-service level and doesn't happen very well at the in-service level. Another thing that is different about children with brain injuries is the uneven skill profiles. So might be quite strong in one area and quite weak in another, even within a skill area, for example, like math. Might be quite good at more advanced skills and have some problems with skills that normally you would think that they would have. So those are confusing. Also, there's a whole family piece that family's been through a very difficult experience, and that can present some problems, some tension sometimes in the school setting. Another difference, I think, with kids with brain injuries is the memory issues and implications for learning. So learning takes longer, takes more practice, takes more review, takes smarter instruction.
A few strategies for teaching instructional approaches that educators can implicate in the classroom are repetition of activities, condensing the tasks, checklists and color-coded materials, repeat instructions back to the teacher or a peer, breaks in between work periods, and provide the student with extra time. For example, using file folder activities that utilize the same concept every day. This will work at their memory, repeating of tasks, using checklists, as well as giving the student the structure that they need and desire.
What should be assessed for students with ABI or TBI? They will be individualized to each student, curriculum-based, such as math goals or language goals, modified task, and routine goals. Some assessment tools are having a checklist of the goals that pertain to the individual education plan, anecdotal notes, tests, quizzes, and projects. Every assessment for these students would never be the same. They are individualized. Education for All is an excellent resource to have on hand when working with students who have exceptionalities. The chart shows the continuous assessment process.
So, what can we as teacher candidates do to ensure students with exceptionalities needs are met within our classrooms? We need to research using ministry documents and credible sources the exceptionalities our students possess in order to understand the modifications needed prior to the student entering our classroom. We need to collaborate with all appropriate team members within the school community to ensure the success of each of our students who have exceptionalities. And finally, we need to consistently evaluate our physical classroom environment, assessment methods, and teaching strategies to ensure we as teachers are creating an environment where all students, including those who possess exceptionalities, can excel in.
Elvin, the Elephant Who Forgets, written by Heather Snyder, illustrated by Susan Beebe. Elvin is a little gray elephant, as little as elephants can be, that is. He has big, soft, fluffy ears, long, beautiful eyelashes, and a huge, handsome trunk. Elvin is the most enthusiastic trumpeter in his herd. When he blows his huge, handsome trunk, an enchanting sound fills the forest. It is well known that elephants are especially smart and have exceptional memories. They never forget. Except Elvin. He is different from most elephants. Elvin does not always remember things well. One day, a while back, Elvin was standing under his favorite fig tree. It was a twisted, ancient tree that had lived since the forest first began. Suddenly, a large, rotten branch fell and hit Elvin's head with a loud thud and a crack. Afterwards, when the swollen spot on Elvin's head was mostly healed, he went back to school. Elvin was glad to be back at school with his friends, but began to notice that he had forgotten some things he used to know. His teacher asked him, "Elvin, why can't you remember how to add your figs?" Elvin felt sad and confused. He did not know why it was hard for him to add figs now. Before he hurt his head, Elvin was a fantastic fig counter. Some days, when the teacher was talking to the class, lots of thoughts would zip and zoom around Elvin's head at the same time. As you can imagine, this made it hard for him to listen and learn, even though he tried with all his might to pay attention. Sometimes Elvin was so frustrated that he just put his head down on his desk and cried. On the playground, Elvin also began to be bothered by all the noise and wanted to close his ears tightly. One day, during recess, Elvin got mad and picked a fight with another little elephant. Elvin was not sure why he got mad. It positively puzzled him. Elvin wanted so much to be able to do his schoolwork as well as he used to. Every day at home he said, "Mom, I am going to sit down and practice counting my figs." But after a little time had passed, Elvin could not think hard anymore, and his head would start to pound. Elvin knew that he was somehow different now. He wondered if he was a bad elephant because he cried a lot and messed up on his schoolwork. He started to feel sadder and sadder. His ears began to sag and his trunk began to drag. Elvin did not even feel like eating peanuts after school with his elephant friends anymore. He thought they might be mad at him because he cried and picked fights. Poor Elvin. Nobody seemed to know why Elvin acted differently, so Elvin's parents took him to see the doctor. They wanted to find out how to help Elvin feel happy again. The first doctor banged a rubber hammer on Elvin's knee till his legs jumped straight out and almost bumped the doctor's trunk. This doctor told Elvin that nothing big was wrong with him, but that another doctor, called a neuropsychologist, would check to see if anything little was wrong. Elvin thought that this was an enormous name for a doctor and got his trunk all twisted when he tried to say it out loud. The neuropsychologist asked Elvin to do lots of different things. Elvin got to follow a path of letters and numbers with his pencil in his trunk. He especially liked another part when he got to draw funny shapes inside little squares. He got to wiggle his trunk a lot on that one. Elvin, the doctor explained, "You are not a bad little elephant because you forget things. Even though the outside of your head looks the same, some things on the inside were hurt when the rotten tree branch fell on your head. This is what makes it hard for you to remember and concentrate." Elvin was all ears while the doctor was talking. Elvin saw lots of other elephants who had hurt legs and trunks and all sorts of things. The doctor said, "Elvin, lots of little elephants get hurt. Sometimes the hurts are on the outside, like a broken trunk, and it is easy to see why it's hard for that elephant to spray water on his back. but your hurt is on the inside of your head, so it's hard for you and other elephants to see what makes you cry or what makes you forget things sometimes. Elvin's head lifted, his ears opened wide, and he proudly held his trunk up high to trumpet loudly. He understood now that he was not a bad little elephant after all, and that it was not his fault that some things were harder for him now. Still, there was something that partly puzzled Elvin. Elvin was still a little sad because some things about him would always be different. He couldn't count figs like he used to, but the doctor said it was okay to feel sad when part of you has changed and seems different to you. Mostly, Elvin just felt happy again. He went to see different doctors who taught him tricks to help him concentrate and remember things better. They told him that writing things down on paper was a good way to remember important things. The doctor also taught Elvin's mummy and daddy how to help him by checking the order of items on his list. And since Elvin was in charge of the family figs, his parents bought him a neat little purple notepad to help him count correctly. Elvin knew he was still special, even though he forgot sometimes. Every day he enjoyed playing peanut games with his friends, counting the family figs, and trumpeting tunes triumphantly. The end.